there it is, the final reality stretcher in the confirmation of Supreme Court nominee Judge Sonia Sotomayor. She has so much judicial experience that the Republicans want to delay her hearings. Our third story, they need more time to vet her than they had for Chief Justice Roberts. The scheduled date of July 13th is too soon to start. August 6th, too soon to vote. Also, oh yeah, did they mention? She's racist. Republicans today suggested she has decided so many cases, 3,625 of them, that they will have to prepare essentially till the year 2011 if they were to take the same amount of time they had for Judge Roberts, whose 327 cases on the bench allowed for the leisurely pace of reviewing 6 cases per day. When Judge Alito, however, was nominated with considerably more cases than that under his belt, Senator Jeff Sessions, now top Republican on the Judiciary Committee, said, quote, "We don't need to read everything he's written." The upshot, Republicans want more time to investigate a more experienced nominee so they can then reach the sweeping prejudgments they are already propagating about her. Case in point, Republican Chair Michael Steele, who says he needs time to understand her record, but already thinks he understands her record well enough to justify saying, God help you if you're a white male coming before her bench.
If you have a situation where you're going before a trier of fact, and the trier of fact is on record as saying that, you know, that this individual background experience is better positioned to make a decision than someone else, that gives one pause. And so my view of it was, in looking at it, you're now segregated out white men by your comments. So God help you if you're a white male. If you're seeking justice, this may not be the bench you want to go before.
Republican Senator Mel Martinez today said he understands Sotomayor's now infamous, innocuous, and misquoted comment about wise Latina judges, and he has no problem with it. And B, the Senate already confirmed Sotomayor for the appeals court in 1998, so Republicans should have already vetted everything but the last 10 years. There. Take the weekend off, and we'll see you July 13th. Let's bring in Chris Cillizza, White House reporter for The Washington Post, author of the paper's political blog, The Fix. Chris, good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
After Talking Points memo calculated that Republicans would need into 2011 if they wanted that same ratio of days to cases that they had for Roberts, they asked the Republicans exactly how long they did want in the Sotomayor case, but nobody would say. Why won't they say?
Because, Keith, they're trying to buy time, by and large. What they're trying to do is essentially say, let's wait and see, let's take our time with this, because, again, those arguments are not unreasonable to the average person not paying that close attention. Well, maybe we should pay and see, pay more attention. Maybe we should take more time with it. The truth of the matter, though, is from a political perspective, they're sort of waiting and hoping that something comes up that gives them a real entree, a real wedge to make an issue out of Sotomayor's confirmation, because the truth, nothing has yet. The other thing to think about, Keith, every time a nominee for the Supreme Court comes up, this is true on both sides, activists, outside groups, they wait for these things. They raise massive amounts of money off them. It's their breadwinner in many ways. So the shorter the confirmation fight, the worse for all these outside groups that are simply waiting years for something like this to happen.
Talking about the timing, its relative rapidity, Senator Kyle told Politico, quote, "We'll simply have to wait and see how that review goes. I've checked, and it's not going really fast. It's hard to do." Obviously, the first response from a embittered American population would be boo-hoo. But the second, which is harder, forming a balanced assessment of a longtime judge or finding something to justify your predetermined opposition?
That's, Keith, you've hit on the problem. You can't on the one side say, well, we need more time to review, and then on the other side say, but it appears as though she's not qualified. You have to either do one or the other. And the truth of the matter is that no amount of time that the Obama White House would have set for the review of this, even if it was 2011, probably would have satisfied Republicans. I would say the same when Roberts and Alito were put forward. Democrats wanted more time. Republicans gave them less. That's the consequences of elections, in truth. Somebody wins and somebody loses, and the majority gets to dictate. So I remember a White House advisor told me very soon after Sotomayor was picked and the announcement was made that they would really like to have her confirmed by the August recess. I said, well, what about this timing? Is it too fast? And he said, no matter what date we said, there would have been complaints. And I think that's probably right.
And what happens to not just the question of timing, but the question of the prejudgment of the judge, with what Senator Martinez said about Sotomayor simply meaning, hey, guess what? Ethnicity contributes to who you are, and so what? Everybody's ethnicity contributes to everybody's who they are. It doesn't make much difference.
It's a complicating factor by a big stretch, Keith. And don't forget, Mel Martinez, not only a very prominent Hispanic Republican elected official, also retiring. So he doesn't necessarily have to worry about pleasing the Republican Party elders as much as some of the other people. But again, this gets back to why Sotomayor and opposing her is so difficult for the Republican Party. The Hispanics, the largest minority group in the country, growing rapidly in places like Arizona, New Mexico, even places like Iowa, Minnesota, Colorado. All of these are swing states. People like John Cornyn, the head of the National Republican Senatorial Committee, he's from Texas. He knows about the growth of the Hispanic vote. They know that they can't simply oppose her because she's Latina or because she used the phrase, a wise Latina. Can they find something else to oppose her about? That's what this delaying is about. It's about trying to find something else that is seen as legitimate grounds by which to make this fight and doesn't alienate the Hispanic community.
And, of course, the longer they leave her out there without that appearing, the longer and the more comfortable and more familiar she becomes to the public, and everybody sitting at home going, well, wasn't she confirmed already?
I was just going to say, Keith, I think most people probably assume that this is over with. There was an initial burst of press, and then it went away.
Chris Cillizza of the Washington Post, great point. Many thanks. Take care.
Thank you, Keith.
That's next, but first time for Countdown's number 2 story, tonight's worst persons in the world. They bronzed Joseph Farah, the liar who runs the World Net Daily website for extremists, complaining today that I was wrong when we reported that after the assassination of Dr. George Tiller, blogger and sometimes WND columnist Jill Stanek posted personal data about the 2 doctors who still perform late-term abortions. He also said we had a lot of nerve, quote, indicting people for instigating Tiller's murder, considering I am, quote, putting targets on the backs of those he labels the worst persons in the world. And he wrote, there are at least a dozen or so people who watch this cretin. All right, incorrect order. Here is Jill Stanek's blog from June 3rd, in which she posted photos of Dr. Leroy Carhart and his facility. Here is Jill Stanek's blog from March 9th, in which she posted a group photo of Carhart, his wife, and Governor Sebelius of Kansas, each circled in red like targets. As to the worst person segment and its targets, having been a target of domestic terrorism for my work, I have always publicly and repeatedly insisted that none of these matters should ever be resolved by violence, nor even by intruding on somebody's privacy. I have taken the side of people with whom I disagree, whose homes were photographed, addresses posted, or who had cream pies thrown at them. And as to the dozen who watch, AC Nielsen Company estimates last night's audience here at 1,722,000. And as to Mr. Farah, this is the man who still insists that his website never claimed it had authenticated Barack Obama's birth certificate when, in fact, on August 23, 2008, in an article by Drew Zahn, it did exactly that. Mr. Farah is a flaming fraud. The silver to Mr. Bouncy Bouncy. This was from this afternoon, just before an Obama birth certificate denier shot up the Holocaust Museum in Washington.
You know, a lot of people talk about Obama and his messianic complex. He does have one thing in common with God. Barack Obama has one thing in common with God. You know what it is? God does not have a birth certificate either. God does not have a birth certificate, neither does Obama. Not that we've seen.
Even I doubt that had anything to do with what happened in that tragedy at the Holocaust Museum today, but it does underscore the fact that if you say stupid, incendiary, racist, crackpot things frequently enough, eventually, Rush, you will make a joke about some stupid thing, and then a few minutes later, somebody who thinks the stupid thing is gospel will go and kill somebody over it. But our winner, Congresswoman Michelle Bachmann,